The entire world is now aware of the war going on in the Ukraine and how that could possibly affect supply chains. But a little aircraft company in Kyiv hasn't been affected by this turmoil and now supplying an American distributor with, get this, ready-to-fly airplanes. Well, almost ready to fly. Your adventure into aviation today brings us to a little farm strip in the country, complete with field corn, sweet corn, a half-mile of grass, and a well-equipped hangar to do, well, just about anything you want. So today we've traveled out to Johnstown, Ohio to Heavenbound Aviation, which is the importer of the Aeroprakt. Now we've covered the Aeroprakt aircraft in the past, but today I wanted to show you kind of like an in-process one that just arrived here by container, and what happens. We have to get the wings put on and get it certified for flight. All right, again here in Johnstown, Ohio at Heavenbound Aviation, and Andy, which we've had on before, owns this whole establishment here. We're going to talk about what the process is of getting an airplane in here from the Ukraine, which is Aeroprakt, and getting it put together and ready for flight. So Andy, kind of walk us through. First, introduce yourself, and then we'll walk through the process.
Okay, Andy Humphrey with Heavenbound Aviation here in Johnstown, Ohio. We're the U.S. distributor for Aeroprakt aircraft, and today we're going to talk a little bit about how we receive them and how we put them together and prepare them for a customer.
Okay, so you know, obviously this is on the other side of the planet, so it has to get here. So I assume this goes by ship in a container.
It does, yeah. We bring a 40-foot container in with 2 airplanes. Aeroprakt has an amazing way of packaging them so that they're very well protected, and we can go over that a little bit as we go.
Okay, and about how long is the lead time and on water if you were to order one today to get it over to the United States?
Right now we're looking at probably 6 months or less to have one ready to fly. That's not always the case. It depends on how many customer orders we get in the pipeline. So it takes, once the factory ships, they're on the water for about 8 weeks. Okay,
so that is, factor that in, the shipping time, if you will. It's not just the manufacturing and so forth, but to actually get it here. Mm-hmm. All right, and then once it gets in the United States, is there anything special you have to do as an importer, bringing an aircraft that is no longer aircraft parts, as a lot of aircraft kits come over here? This is actually a functioning aircraft. So is there anything you have to do paperwork-wise that it might be different?
Basically, the way it works with an SLSA is we are an extension of the factory, so it arrives as an unfinished airplane, as essentially parts. We do the final assembly, do all the checks, go through the whole checklist. We get a production test flight certificate from the FAA, so we do a production test flight, and then once everything is complete, the FAA comes out and they do an inspection, give it the airworthiness certificate, then it becomes an airplane.
Okay, all right, let's kind of walk through the process, show you what it looks like exactly coming out of the container, and then the different steps that, well, getting the wings on it and getting ready for flight. One thing I wanted to mention real quick, this is coming from the Ukraine, and as we know, there's a war going on. We're told there's a war going on over there, and you would think, like, how can we possibly get aircraft from Ukraine when there's a war going on? In fact, you tell me there's been no delay whatsoever, so just speak to that for a second. I think you said you might be able to get some airplanes in the next couple months, and what's going on there?
Yeah, it's really amazing. I mean, when the war started, we had a delay. They shut down for, I think, 6 weeks, where everybody's trying to figure things out. The convoys were aiming at Kyiv and all that stuff. And then once that settled down a little bit and the Russians backed off a little bit, they were thinking about moving to Poland, and they finally decided, no, we're going to go right back to the factory and get back to building airplanes. And they did, and they haven't missed a day since.
So the area this is located in the country is far enough for whatever the war zone, if you will, that's not impeding not only their day-to-day manufacturing, but also import and export of parts that they don't make, and then parts that they are making, as in, i.e., the whole airplane.
Yeah, so the factory's in Kyiv, so they're in the city, they're not actually at an airport. And there's a misconception, people think the factory was hit early on in the war, but that was actually not the factory, it was a flight club. So they have a private little airport there where they keep airplanes and test airplanes and things, and that did get damaged, not destroyed, but damaged, and some of the airplanes there. They were thinking about moving the factory there at some point to expand, but they're on hold for that right now. But But yeah, the factory itself has not been damaged. Now they've got power outages to deal with, so they're doing generators at times and things like that. But
okay,
logistics and supply chain is moving along, and frankly, you know, I took over in 2022. You know, we were dealing with the whole COVID nonsense, and what was holding up the airplanes was the parts from the United States. You know, Garmin, you know, Dynon, you know, some of these other parts, tires, things like that they couldn't get. So,
well, that being said, and as this goes on, I assume that the U.S. is probably one of the biggest consumers or customers to them. Have they thought about maybe having a location here for the United States market to maybe manufacture or do some subcomponents or whatnot?
I don't think there's any chance of that.
Okay.
You know, the labor pool here is just too tight. I mean, we don't have the talent anymore. We don't have the manufacturing ability. People that have the ability to build an airplane of this caliber are, you know, making way north of 6 figures, and they can't afford that.
This is exactly how it comes off the container, and you said that there's some unique packaging. So walk us through that.
Yeah, this is how the factory packages these. They build a custom steel wing rack that comes on every one of them. And they're actually bolted to the wing attach points. So they're mounted solid on there. They're as assembled as they can get them, you know, and be able to ship them. You can't see it here, but when they come out of the container, they actually set the main gear up on old car tires, and they build a little steel weldment for the wheels to go into, so they're cushioned by the car tires. So that works out really nice. They try to leave as much film on as they can to protect everything. You come around the back, you'll see how everything is carefully cradled inside here. We've got the lift struts on one side, got the stabilator on the other side. This is an A22. The rudder is packaged up against with the vertical, and we keep a root fairing right on top of the fuselage. They actually mold those plastic pieces for shipping that as well. All these weldments are all custom made and made for the aircraft.
And what's nice about that is reusable. Do you ship that back, or you just kind of toss that to the side when you...
It all goes to scrap.
Okay.
Believe it or not. We used a few of them. We built a trailer so we can haul them. So we've got wing racks mounted on the walls of the trailer. We also built a couple wing racks, so when these come in, first thing we do is we unpackage them. We take the wings off and we set them in a wing rack that we can roll around the shop. The stabilator goes on top, struts go on the bottom, as you'll see here in a second.
So this is your custom rack here you built here, Andy, just to make it ease of maneuvering.
Yeah, actually we got a guy on staff that's a wonderful welder, and he made all these for us. Basically we use the racks that they come in, and then we build a steel frame and rollers for it. It works out really good. Once the wings are in here, they're out of harm's way, and we can move them wherever we need them. Stabilator goes on top. Lift struts would be on the bottom, except we've got them out ready for assembly.
Okay, and what are the attach points on here? This is a strut wing.
Yeah, we have a single strut. So we've got 2 attach points at the root, and then we have 1 attach point for the strut. So we've got our attach points here and 1 inside, and we've got 1 down here for the strut. We've got aileron linkage. And again, this is a 32. A 22 is a little bit different, but they're similar.
Okay, you said there's, obviously you can see the one out here to the rear, and there's one in the middle through this hole here, or what's this here I was noticing?
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's the wiring. This is the attach point here.
Okay. It's a giant bolt that goes to the main spar, and then a little one in the trailing spar.
Right. They're 5/16 bolts, so they're not terribly giant, but...
Okay. Is there any real rigging and adjusting involved, or is that pretty much already done in the factory and you're just putting bolts in?
No, Aeroprakt builds these in a jig, and they are so tight that, I mean, we don't adjust anything except occasionally the elevator trim, but normally it's exactly right too.
All right, I'm gonna pop in here real quick to talk about our sponsors. As you know, I can't do this all on my own. We got to have somebody to help fuel that truck. We try really hard to work with sponsors that provide a good service and a good quality product. So let's talk about those guys right now. Dynon Avionics at Dynon.com, the premier provider of glass panel avionics systems for experimental and light sport aircraft. And visit our website at experimentalaircraftchannel.com for new videos and easy to navigate playlists and so much more. Speaking of fueling that truck, if you guys want to join us on our Patreon page, become patrons of this channel, just search on Patreon for Experimental Aircraft Channel. Sign up at several different levels, so check that out. Yeah, how many connections do you actually have once the wings are installed, Andy?
Well, once the 3 bolts are in that hold it on, or 4 bolts, basically we've got the fuel lines. We've got a hard mount wiring connector here for the wiring. The only wiring in the wings are the fuel level sensors and the lights. All the avionics are in the fuselage.
Andy, obviously you have a whole team here about ready to assist on this wing installation. You want to introduce everybody real quick?
Yeah, so this is Jake Leonard, and he's been here since 2017, off and on. He's also a missionary in Peru, so he's only here sometimes. He's going to be in the States for a little while. He's an AMP and also a CFI. And we've got Jacob Knoll, he's an AMP. He's our newest hire. He's been here since, 3 months now? 4 months, 6 months?
8 months.
8 months. You've been here a while. Matilda and Nate are both flight students that work for us, and they may or may not pursue AMP ratings as well. So Jacob will soon be a CFI as well.
Looking forward to seeing you guys helping getting these wings on.
And we do have a couple guys that aren't here today, so Friday a couple of them are off. Back. A little bit. Tip aft. Tip aft a little more. Bingo, you got it. Up a little bit. Okay, back one's pin. Okay, tip forward. Should be close. Okay, give me a wiggle. Okay, we are in. Down. A little more, a little more, a little more. Oh. Pinned.
There we go. Jake gets the day off now.
One wing down. You're high. You're in here, okay. Tip forward. Give it a rock. Okay, we're in. Okay.
All right, final piece of the puzzle here. Well, not final. We got the flaperons yet, right?
Up a little. Okay, up just a little. There. And just a second, open it. That one's in.
We call that the meat hammer.
Down a little bit, little bit, little bit, little bit, little bit. Hold on. Okay.
You got what? Flaperons and some fairings.
Yeah, basically we got some more, we got to put the linkage on for the flaperons. We got to run the fuel lines through, trim them, hook them up. We'll go through and put the nuts and safeties on all the fasteners. bring the fairings down, put them on. And that's pretty much wrapped for the wings. On the inside, we got to connect the wiring, and then we put the interior panels in. On the phone? Yeah. Well, hang up.
All right, Andy, so on to the tail section, huh?
Yep, we're ready to put the tail on now. So.
And this one's a little different. You got two models, the 22 and the 32, and this one has a stabilator.
Correct, yeah, this is a stabilator. If we have the 22, it comes with the elevator and horizontal already together, so it's all kind of one piece. The stabilator gives it a really nice design. Not only is it really effective, really sensitive, but the way they did the trim with the anti-servo tab, you put the flaps in, it just goes straight ahead. So it's really a significantly better design, I think. I'll grab the trim.
Take the dummy in.
Okay.
So are most all the controls on this push-pull tubes or cables?
The 32 is primarily cable. You've got some short push tubes, but okay, bring it on in. Oh. Let's see what goes the other way. Okay.
So Andy, one thing I noticed about this aircraft, it's all metal except for the control surfaces are fabric. Mm-hmm. So why was that unique to the Aeroprakt?
You know, I think there's a lot of good reasons to use fabric. Weight savings is one. Frankly, it looks nicer. If you had a bunch of sheet metal and rivets, I don't think it looks as well as a fabric. The fit and finish on the fabric is just beautiful. Fabric's also easy to repair. It probably does cost them a little bit more in labor to build it that way.
All right, Andy, so while they're finishing up the torquing of the hardware on the stabilator there, just kind of walk around the aircraft. I noticed this has an option of a ballistic chute. So how is that incorporated into this, and how does it work?
Yeah, let's take a look at that. You're still. This has got the chute fully installed. It's a soft pack. It's made by Magnum. Dennis Carley in Florida is the U.S. distributor for them. The current cost of the chute installed is $4,800, so it's really pretty reasonable. It's a very nice installation. We got a blast panel up here for it to go through. And you can see all the tethers that run up through. They're all nicely hidden in the airframe. Everything's out of the way. So it's a very clean installation. I'd say maybe somewhere around half the people get chutes, or maybe a little bit less. Some of the negatives to a chute are the weight. It's nearly 40 pounds added to the aircraft empty weight. And you have to do maintenance on it. There's an expiration date on it, so that all has to be done with the light sport regulations. So,
while we're in the interior here, we're just taking a look around the cockpit. This has a mechanical flap handle appears.
Yeah, so the flaps on all the Aeroprakts, you just push them to the side, pull them down. We've got 10 and 20 degrees. These are full span flaperons, so there's a whole lot of area there, so they're very effective. It also has very good aileron authority at very low speed all the way down to stall. So it's a great low speed airplane. We can fly around at 30 knots stable. So it's pretty incredible.
Okay, and also look back here, I see a little red handled lever here. Is this your, what is that?
Yeah, these are our tank valves for the fuel system. So we've got a tank in each wing. This being an IS engine, so it has a dual port valve, so we're shutting not only the feed but also the return off at the same time. That way we don't overflow a tank with the fuel return. But if you do have a ULS, you're going to see a little bit different style valve in it.
A pretty simple fuel system.
It is a very simple and very reliable fuel system. There's really not much to go wrong.
So Andy, I noticed that there's kind of like a zipper storage here. Is this your luggage, or is this for maintenance, or what, other than to house the battery?
Yeah, this is all luggage area. We've got a luggage limit of 66 pounds with the parachute, so quite a bit of weight you can put back there, and even above that, you really can't get it out of CG, so it's more of a structural limitation.
So you got some room to put some duffel bags to squish in underneath the zipper.
Yeah, you can.
And then you could probably bungee some stuff on top of that.
You can, yeah, with the zipper closed. And you know, we actually have a lot of people that carry their pets back here, and have a dog that lays back here. So,
Andy, we talked off camera for a minute, different engine options, which this is built around the Rotax, but is one more popular than the other as far as the IS injected versus the ULS carbureted, or what's that looking like?
We are definitely selling more IS engines now, and we've been real happy with them. They're considerably more fuel efficient. I think even more than the fuel efficiency, customers are after the low maintenance. Nobody really likes to rebuild carburetors anymore. They are very low maintenance. They're very, kind of idiot proof. There's really not a whole lot to do on them. They just run like a car engine. The carbureted engines are still available, and some people still like them for, just the simplicity of them. If you live in an area where there's no Rotax people around, that might be a consideration. The ULS will be a little bit easier for the average A&P to maintain. So,
okay, one thing you pointed out that you really liked about this kind of going down the engine here is that the baffling for the cooling system. You want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, I think Aeroprakt did a phenomenal job engineering this. What we've got is the radiator here, and the oil cooler is in behind it, and we've got this whole plenum here that captures all the air coming off the radiator. And in normal operation, it's dumping out the bottom here. But when you turn the cabin heat on, it seals that off completely, and everything coming through the radiator is going into the cabin. So it's got excellent cabin heat, which if you're down in Florida, you probably don't care about, but
right.
Up here in the North Country, we love it.
Okay, and then the difference between the ULS and the IS, of course, is the computer, and then the fuse block, which is here, but it is recommended, and I see you guys running wiring to the inside. The computer itself is inside.
Yeah, the ECM is actually on the inside of the firewall where it's protected, not only from any kind of weather, but also from the heat of the engine compartment.
Let's kind of get down low here for a second. This has a bit of a unique landing gear system. Want to talk about that for a moment? Yeah,
Aeroprakt has done a really good job at designing this. We've got a solid steel nose leg. We're pivoting right here with a shock, so it's really takes a beating. It is a direct link, it's not castering, so it's solid with the rudder pedals, so you got great steering ability. Eliminates the need for differential braking, so we keep the braking system a little simpler. For those of you out there that are GA pilots, it doesn't have toe brakes, so don't shove the rudder through the firewall, it won't do anything. The brakes are on the throttle on the yoke control or the grip on the stick. And if you happen to damage the nose gear leg, it's very simple to replace. There's like 3 bolts inside. We just slide it out, slide a new one in. You can do it in less than an hour. So it's very low maintenance, especially for people in a flight training environment. The main gear legs are 70-75 aluminum, CNC machined, very durable. I've never sold one in the 2.5 years that I've been the distributor. If you bend them, the factory will even let you straighten them one time in a press, if you have a big enough press, but it's going to take a big one. But if you do need to replace them, it's very simple. There's 2 bolts and a fuselage, you can slide them out. Now you're operating off of a beautiful grass runway here, and you're having no problem at all with this. What would be its limitations though in an off-airport type of landing or STOL type of stuff? We've got several different options on the wheels. This has got the 15 6x6 tires with wheel pants. That's probably the more common installation on the 32s. And they do great for pavement, they do great for grass runways. If you're going to be off airport, I wouldn't recommend it. If you're off airport, we've got the AirTrack 6x6, which is a 420 millimeter height. That's what we run on our A22 trainer. So in the wintertime, you have a cow guard on the front of this thing, a grill? Yeah, this is a factory option as well. So if you want more heat, this just goes on here with 2 screws. And you can just slide it to whatever airflow you want through there. We found that right about halfway works really good. That keeps your engine temperatures up. This also blocks off air to the oil cooler, so the cold air doesn't hit the oil cooler, only the warm air coming through the radiator. So it keeps your oil temps up, keeps your coolant temps up. The thermostat will regulate the engine in really cold weather, somewhere around 150, 155. With this, and we can close this part way, we can get her up usually close to 200. That gives you a lot better cabin heat coming through.
After bolting on all the major components like wings and tail feathers, there is still a lot of fine detail work to do, installing fairing covers and making sure everything's torqued down. Then on to really fun stuff like installing the prop hub, propeller blades, and spinner. But this assembly is nothing compared to building an entire airplane from a kit. This is the advantage of an SLSA, or light sport aircraft. All right, Andy, so we kind of followed you and your crew through the assembly of this light sport aircraft. One thing I did want to mention and talk about is your choice of prop. Currently, it looks like you're on a 3-blade E-prop, but what other ones have you tried in the past, and what are you kind of settling on?
We've tried the Kyiv 263. That's a common one. That's the less expensive prop. Of course, the E-prop 3-blade. We have not tried a 4-blade E-prop yet on a 32. We've also tried the Duke Swirl, and we've had a customer that's tried a Duke Flash. So we've got quite a few different options. I've got the Duke Swirl 3 on mine, and we're running the E-prop on some of the others. We've done testing with identical weight airplanes, same engine, same day, and I really can't determine any significant difference between Duke and E-prop. They both perform better than Kyiv 263. The factory is asking us to try a Kyiv 273. We haven't done that yet, so that might be a good option. But a couple differences between the props other than performance. The E-prop with bolt, spinner, and everything is about 6 pounds for the 3-blade, so it's incredibly light. It's all balanced as an assembly, so it's very smooth. We really like that. The Duke prop, by comparison, is around 12 pounds, 13 pounds, right in there with the bolts and spinner and spacer and everything. So it's considerably heavier. There's approximately $1,000 difference in the retail price between Duke and E-prop, so that's a significant difference as well. What I like about Duke and E-prop both, as far as a maintenance standpoint, they're both a 2,000 hour TBO. Both of them can be re-inspected and put back in service for another 2,000 hours. There's no calendar time life on them, so both of them are excellent in that regard. E-prop is claiming to have one on a UAV now with 34,000 hours on it, so they've got a great service history. The Kyiv prop, one thing that you really need to know about that is it has a calendar life. I think they're at 6 years. I don't remember now, I think it's 1,800 hour TBO maybe. But that 6-year calendar life is really going to get most people, and they want you to replace the blades at 6 years. That's a significant difference.
Yeah, you wouldn't think, looking at this has roughly like 1.5 inch blade at the tip, and doesn't look very much of a cord to it, but it actually bites a good amount of air.
It really does, yeah. I think it may be just a little bit less static thrust standing still, but by the time you rotate and you're off the ground, I think they pull identical. I mean, the feet per minute climb between E-prop and Duke is spot on. The cruise is spot on. I mean, we're within 1 or 2 knots either way at any altitude and throttle setting. So I would say performance, they're neck and neck. So you really need to look at the other, the weight and the price would be the other 2 significant comparisons.
All right, so going back to the assembly of this, obviously it looks like this can be, for the most part, put together in about a day. And then of course you've got several checklists that you've come up with yourself, but just kind of like a brief overview of the kind of things that you check before. Like, this is ready for a static test, I understand, for an engine run up, but what do you actually do before it gets into the air?
Before it gets into the air, we've done basically a full condition inspection. I mean, we've gone through every cotter pin, made sure that the factory hasn't missed anything. We checked all the control surfaces for movement, make sure nothing's binding, nothing's rubbing anywhere. And very rarely do we ever find anything. It's not 100% perfect. Once we get all that done, we're going to do a run-up. So we put some fuel in there. We put 1.5 gallons each tank. We rock it, make sure the low fuel lights are working correctly, the gauges are working correctly. The first 3 gallons, we actually sump that out in case there was anything in the fuel system. We're washing that out, and then we fuel them up to fly. So we test them at 1/2 tank initially. But yeah, it takes about a day for final assembly. Now, before we go putting the wings on and doing the final assembly, we've already done a lot of little stuff, configuring the avionics. Sometimes we add an instrument that didn't come from the factory, things like that. So there's a lot of little things that go behind the scenes. We've got, there's probably close to 100 items on the checklist that we're going through.
For those of you interested in buying one of these little airplanes from the Ukraine, contact Andy at heavenboundaviation.com. You can own one of these for $150,000 to $200,000, depending on options. But check their website for current pricing. Thanks for watching. See you next time.